Nilsson, I'd like to firstly thank you once again for the excellent keynote address from this morning, and we really welcome the chance to extend the dialogue with Ms. Tiamotopoulos. We're very happy to have you here. Dr. Buzek and I would like to ask you a few follow-up questions on a similar theme to what we discussed with the keynote address. Dr. Buzek, I think you'll be asking the first question, if you could begin.
One of the big questions for the future is for sure always connected with the young generation. And what is really a hot potato and also a very important problem is youth employment or unemployment, I may say, because the figures we know from the southern parts of the European Union having an unemployment by 30, 40, 50% for the young generation is really shocking. We had it also in parts of Eastern and Southeastern Europe also. It was understandable by the changes here, but now it is very much depending on banking crisis and so on and so on. Where are we standing now, and what are the next steps, I think, to come closer to a solution?
First of all, I would say that it is, of course, totally unsustainable that we have such a situation for more generation who risk to be out of the labor market. But I also think that, and I used to say it in the committee, I expect very much also that the social partners, employers and the trade unions tried at least to find temporary solutions in order to give it more easy to employ. But of course, in the end, it's the member state, the government, the parliament, who is the decision makers, who is responsible to do it. But on European level, I have to say that we need to keep together 27 member states. We cannot leave this problem where we have the highest unemployment, because we are all affected, and we have together, as you said in your speech also, we have the solidarity as a key for European Union between member states. In reality, Commission, governments, they don't create the jobs, but they make the road possible for enterprises, different enterprises, to employ. And of course, everything is built on that we can keep also a reasonable demand from citizens. And as we can see the cuts in your country and with your excellent experience as Minister and Commissioner, of course, we expect that the commissions also take the now responsibility, and they did it reasonably when they talk about the package for youth employment, which should stimulate.
I share your opinion that it is a question of the responsibility of the national governments in a quite large way. Let's look a little bit at the difficulties of mobility, because I think if one might find a job, but then there are the difficulties about how to live there, get the allowance, and so on and so on. What can be done there?
If you allow me, of course, this is the problem, youth unemployment. Now, this is the great problem in Europe. In some countries, as in Greece or in Spain, it is more than 50%. But this is the problem everywhere, even in Austria, even in Sweden, youth unemployment. So, how we have tried to tackle it for years. On the one side, we have what we call employment policies. This is the active policies, and this means training, retraining, participating in scholarships, things like that. On the other side is the passive policies. This means benefit or supporting the everyday life in particular areas. But this is not enough anymore. What I mean is that it is not enough to have policies to bring people in the labor market if we do not have a labor market. Because if we do not create jobs, then what can we do with just policies? And how we can create jobs for the time being? And this is the major problem. I believe to be very, very concrete that for this time, European Union and the European Commission and the European Bank and the European Council have to take concrete decisions. First, to change the role of the bank. The European Bank has to print money. And to print money, why? because we need European investments. There is a project in the pipeline since 2000 for investment in European network nets in transportation, in any kind of areas that job can be produced now. Otherwise, I'm afraid that in a few years there will be a wave in Europe, because young people cannot just wait to have a benefit or to participate for 3 or 4 months in a small program.
But Your Excellency, I'm involved in the strategy for the Danube region, infrastructure, and may I say, there is money available. The real problem is the implementation of the project, how they are elaborated. And sometimes I have the impression we need more assistance to the national administration that they are able to do it, to bring the projects down on the ground. And if I may mention another problem, I think we have also a lack of vocational training.
This is the main issue. The main issue, particularly in the south now, where the problem is. The vocational education is the major problem in the educational systems. This is not the case in Germany or in Austria or in the Nordic countries. But the vocational educational systems had not had the priority needed for the time being. And this has to do with the problem of the implementation of these projects you have already.
I beg your pardon to ask a straight question. We have an institute in Torino
yes.
for this. Why is it not really working, obviously?
But very much of this is implemented on member states level. And of course you can say that you can listen to Business Europe. They say there is a lack of 1 million educated engineers. So there is a lack of also the combination with the education and what is possible to have for a job. And I think clever enough we could perhaps mix these better, and of course vocational training is also part of this in order to give the possibility for young people to be able to be employed.
If we enter to the educational field where there are major problems, one problem is the vocational training, and the other one is the links between universities and the economy. And in Europe, particularly comparing to the United States, this is a great problem. There is no culture to find the links on all levels between economy and universities. So there is a big challenge for the educational ministers, unfortunately only at the national level, because I very much agree that it cannot be just a national issue.
We have also said sometimes that the quality of university studies is not even enough if you compare with some other countries outside Europe. So even when you to create an environmental for higher studies, I don't see this. Of course, I represent the civil society. I don't see this opposite, that even to talk about non-formal education. There is a lot of different possibilities to use the situation for youth just now to make them able to have a future job.
I think to add here, it's extremely necessary to create more language education. I think that's one of the conditionalities. For example, I know that the German Goethe institutes in Portugal and Spain are overcrowded because they know you might get a job in Germany or in Austria, but you have to do it in the German language. So far, I'm Jean Monnet professor, and we are pressing the Jean Monnet professors out of this country to do more training on the German language, or maybe on another if there's a chance. I think here I join you totally that the flexibility of the universities should be sometimes a little bit better.
But you talk about
dogmas. I mean, sometimes it's a dogmatic approach.
Right. Yeah.
You talk about mobility, and of course this is one of the cornerstones also in the European Union. This year is dedicated to citizens, and one of the legal ground is mobility. But you can see also inside the European Union that, okay, young people, I can give you an example of one country, you have the family paid your studies in the foreign countries in the European Union, but this country asked, when she asked for permanent, the lady asked for a permanent temporary to work temporary in evenings, weekends, she had to swear on the Bible to not use the social system. Of course, this is for me against all rules in European Union.
Allow me to ask a related question related to the issue of access, and in particular women's rights. Maybe I'll start ladies first. As we look at this issue, you were saying that the main point is job creation, so we need to create jobs. Once the jobs are created, is there equal access in the European Union for men and women? And then my next question, what can Brussels do to actually maybe improve that situation? And what is Brussels doing when it comes to equal opportunities for men and women within the European Union, specifically the issue of employment?
Equal opportunities in the labor market particularly, I think that we have made great steps at the European level, and we must not undermine what has been done in terms of legislation, in terms of policies, in terms of budgets. But unfortunately still there is a big lag, there is a big gap. So concerning the youth unemployment in women area, in the gender gap is about 10%. So in Greece, for example, the youth unemployment is 52% for men, and it is 64% for women. And it is not only that. When there is a crisis and there were particular problems, then we have family problems. We have violence, we have particular personality problems concerning the family situation. What the European Union can do, I think it is a combination of policies. First of all, we need legislation, more legislation in some fields, for example, the social security area. I remind you that women still pay more money for their pension or for their health concerning the private sector than men. Secondly, there is a need to push women in vocational training and in engineering and mathematics. We have a gap there as well. And third, particularly because of the crisis, we need policies concerning family support. We have a very concerning increase in violence in families against women.
And not in all member states, I have to say. This is a very serious issue you raise.
Even in Sweden.
Yeah, it's serious.
I think it's very much connected with some deficits on ethical standards in the society concerning the behavior and so on and so on. We have to look and also to talk about the rules of living together and so on, and mutual understanding concerning women and men. That's a key problem. I share totally your opinion.
I think it's very much up to a situation for men to be able to control strong emotions and also to have this as more general on the agenda, to understand that this is something which is not acceptable.
No, thank you for those responses to that. Now I'd like to ask a question, actually, maybe I'll let you ask the question first regarding cultural diplomacy, and then I'll maybe ask a follow-up question. But could you maybe pose the question regarding cultural diplomacy? Or?
I think for sure, because the question of mobility, employment, of solidarity is very much depending on mutual understanding. I think if there's no mutual understanding existing, that you are knowing not only who are you yourself, who is the other, and in which way is he thinking, what's the category, what's the background, what is also the historical background here, for them things it's not really working. So far, it's a job of cultural diplomacy. I think we are not yet doing enough because we have a lot of prejudges existing. I think sometimes I have the feeling the European public is living out of prejudges and not of knowledge. I think what can we do to promote this? I would be in favor to have more European public on this subject in common, because still I think the public TV and the public radio is very much bound to the nation. And so far I think it has to be more European or even more open.
What are your thoughts on this topic?
I could agree. That is a very short answer, but I think very much if you look for so many things, in some way it's reasonable, it's looked to the member states level. But if we want to create a European atmosphere and to have a more European identity sometimes, I think you are totally right. Because we are looking on member states level. And in some member states you have also strong autonomous regions. In some member states, not.
Does your institution practice as well cultural diplomacy? Are there aspects of your policies that are also dealing with cultural diplomacy? Or?
I think, first of all, intercultural dialogue to understand and to it's also fantastic to see dance in Greece or in Spain and dance in Sweden or in Austria, and the differences we have in this culture. And this is part of the cultural dialogue in my way to understand and appreciate.
I think let's look to positive examples. I'm the chair of the Gustav Mahler Youth Orchestra, which was founded by Claudio Abbado. I think it was done in '86. And we have 28 nations in this youth orchestra, and it's really working, because by music you need no translation. That's one of the advantages. But if I'm at the rehearsals of this orchestra, they are speaking different languages, but everybody's understanding the other. Positive example, may I say, on the other side. But on the other side, I think we have also a lot of misunderstandings, which is coming out, not only the lack of knowledge, but out also of the lack of knowledge about the cultural environment, how it is different. And here I may stress that, for example, religions are playing here a certain role. In some religions we have a development for more openness and mutual understanding. We have also in some religions, I think, some intentions that we are better than the others and we have to fight them because they are in danger, and so on and so on. I think here it's quite necessary. We have a different situation because some religions are moving more to secularism and others are more moving to principle views or even to some hostile actions.
I'd be curious to get your perspectives on Greece also in cultural diplomacy at a time of crisis where the tendency is to cut. Does it make sense for Greece to invest in cultural diplomacy or culture?
The experience in these 3 years is that stereotypes can be back in 1 month. And these stereotypes can be very negative, and we can have the exactly opposite of what cultural diplomacy is. We can see what cultural war is. So we saw the Greeks against the Germans against the Greeks. Then this general attitude about the South, these lazy, bloody people who drink and dance and don't work, etc. And then we have seen the people from the South accusing the people from the North that they have so much benefits from the euro, from the common monetary policy, etc. And all these things have been instruments in the hands of the populism. And we have seen populism everywhere, from Finland to Greece and from Great Britain to Austria. And this is an extreme right and extreme left populism, but in the center is always the same story. We, the unique nation, the bloody European Union. And this is what we can see today everywhere. How we can change it? Of course, we have to build on to know each other and to feel each other. But what I believe is that we have to be more proactive and build on what the European identity is. And of course, the Italians are different than the Finnish, and the Spaniards are different than the Danish, because they have different background, history, expression types, etc. But the whole Europe was built on ancient Greece civilization, ancient Rome, the Renaissance, the German philosophy, the French Revolution, the Enlightenment. So we have so many things in common that we have borrowed from each other, and we have created what today the European building is. And we have illustrated all these things in the treaty, because in the treaty it is about democracy, about tolerance, all these things we can see line by line. But it is true that there was a denial until now to work with people from the literature, with teachers, with philosophers, to work on what the European identity is, in parallel with that national identities. I mean, we speak about the United States, and we have somebody from Boston, a Puritan wasp from Boston, has nothing to do with somebody from Texas. They are not the same people, but they have a common cup. So we need this common cup, and we have to invest on that, and maybe your institution could work particularly on this issue.
Here we are arriving at the question of education. I think we have to do a lot on education here, only choose a small part. I think a comparison of the history books used in our European countries is horrible, because still we have a lot of conviction that we are bigger than the others, better than the others, and so on and so on. It's still working. For sure it's quite necessary. I think what has happened concerning France and Germany was outstanding, but I was looking there, they started the process from 1945 on in a very good direction. The first common French-German history book appeared in 2003. That's a long time after 1945. Huh?
The same problem with the Turks. We cannot have common books. Or with the Balkans, the problem between Balkans.
I think I'm in charge of a center looking to this fact. It's really horrible, because you have bigger Romania, bigger Greece, bigger Serbia, and everything bigger. Huh? I think that we are depending on each other. I think that's a real message which should be given.
But I can.
Has helped, sorry.
Yeah, no, please.
The European Union has helped a lot. Greece, Bulgaria, Romania, to believe in what they are, to invest in their friendship, and this is why I believe that it's very important to have Balkans in the European Union.
That's for sure. If you are looking to the tensions between Bulgaria and Macedonia, I would say yes.
But I totally agree with you, because that's the reason why we have a cooperation in the European Union. But I think also I can see, beside the political life, that there is much engaged in civil society. You have organizations working for this, not for the political party's angel, but also with the willingness to create and to participate. So I think as representing of the civil society, I think I can also see good examples in order to overcome and to build this strong identity and values on European Union's level.
Well, there certainly seems like there's a lot of work to be done, especially in the framework of culture diplomacy, but thank you very much for having the chance to have this exchange, an extension of our dialogue, and we very much look forward to collaborating with each of you on our projects in the future. So thank you very much.